In this video, I'm going to talk about setting up your file organization for your website. We've learned so far this semester that our home pages need to be named index.html in order for them to show up as the default home page. So it's important to remember that your site is kept in a folder. So we define that in Dreamweaver, we aim it at a folder, and that's mirrored on our web hosting. So if I click here on local view and take a peek at my remote server, this shows me all the files I have on my hosting. So there's far more than just my website here. I have a lot of things that I put up to test. There are a lot of server files like this htaccess file, this membership one, these files, a stats folder. Those are all things that collect data and monitor the hosting, make sure it's working, things like that. So before I switch back to my local view on my own computer, you notice that I've got this index.html page right here, and that's the home page for my website. However, that index.html file is inside my root folder, which is notated here with just one slash. That's the shorthand for root folder. So this index page is inside a folder, and folders are also called directories when we're talking about web design. They mean the same thing. So I've got my home folder, my root folder, and I've got an index.html page in it. That becomes the default home page. So I'm going to go back to my local files here so it's a bit simpler. And I have these two folders or directories here. I have other work, which has an index file in it. And I have this synesthesia folder, which has an index file in it. So one of the reasons I've had these set up in folders is that I have multiple files in each of those areas, just based on the amount of content and projects that I have. However, there's a very important bonus to having your work set up this way, even if you only have one file to show, and that's a shorter URL. I'm going to pull down a web browser window, and I'll size it here so that you can see my Dreamweaver files at the same time. So let's start with a home page. So if I just go to my website, carriecfurman.com, press return. So here it's reading my index page. So the one that's out of my root folder or site folder, that's my default page. It's loading. If I click at the end of this URL, and I'm looking at this file here, I type in /cv.html. That will take me to this file here, which has my CV on it. So if I want to get to this folder, all I have to do is, I'm going to delete the end of that, so I'm going to leave the slash after my URL. And I'm just going to type other work, so that's the name of the folder. And I don't need to type anything past that because I'm going to be shown the index file because that's the default home page within that folder. So any index.html file is going to show up in whatever directory or folder it's in. So that means that I can have this nice short URL, and that makes it easy to share, easy to talk about when I do presentations. So when I go to conferences that are about synesthesia, I can just say, go to my website, carriecfurman.com/synesthesia, and what they're actually seeing is this file here, the index file inside my synesthesia folder. So by setting up your site as having folders for everything but your home page, you can have nice short URLs, you can add additional pages that will easily stay organized, and you have an overall simpler, more efficient site setup. This does mean, though, that you will have several files called index.html in your site, and it's important to keep those straight. So really, the best thing you can do is just to not have a bunch of pages open at once, but to get in the habit of closing them so you're sure which page you're working on, especially early in the process before you get a lot of content going. So if I were to start a new site, I would actually look at my wireframe, think about my site concept, the pages that I'm going to have, and somewhere on my computer where it's backed up, I would start a new folder and name it appropriately. Inside that folder, I'm going to make my images folder. And then I would make all of the folders that I need for my site. So other than my home page, let's say my theoretical site is going to have a shop page, gallery page, a frequently asked questions page, contact page, and an about page. Also in here, I'm going to need a folder for my external CSS files. So I'll make a CSS folder. If you knew that you were going to be using JavaScript or something, this would be a good time to make your scripts or JS folder as well. So now I can use this existing file structure. I can go to Dreamweaver, go to the Site menu, make a new site, name it, aim it at the folder that I just made, and now I've got my file structure ready to go. So in the end, if this were the structure for my site, the folders are going to look exactly the same, except I'll have my index.html file out here as my main homepage. And inside each of these folders, except for CSS and images, of course, there will also be an index page and possibly some more files as well, depending on the setup of your site. So that's an overview of how to organize a website for the most efficient URLs, to make them easily shareable and marketable, and how it relates to a live site on web hosting.